creative conversations where Early Music Seattle goes behind the scenes and sometimes into the living rooms of guest artists who are part of our 2021 season. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Betsy Brick, the Development Director of Early Music Seattle, and I'm thrilled to be joined tonight by Irish-style fiddler Randal Bays and guitarist Clint Dye. And they recently came together and performed a concert for us called the Irish Baroque, which will be broadcast on our website this coming Saturday, November 7th at 7 p.m. So please tune in for that to hear them play some wonderful music, and they're going to share some with us tonight also. So before we begin, for those of you who are joining us live tonight, there is going to be time toward the end of our program for some Q&A. So please feel free to click on the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and you can type in any questions that you would like me to ask the artists, and I will do that later. So we will get started here. So, gentlemen, I know there's quite a lot that we could be talking about tonight, but I would like to focus on music, particularly Irish music. And so, Randal, if you would get us started, I've read somewhere that you don't just have a love of Irish music, but you have an obsession with it. So I'm curious, when did this obsession with Irish music begin for you?
I've been a musician since I was pretty young. Since I was 8, I played some instrument or other, and I had been pretty serious about different things, but I was in my probably mid-20s, and I was living in that hotbed of Gaelic culture, Portland, Oregon. just accidentally stumbled into a really great Irish music session, as we call them, and that was kind of it. I went out the next day and got a fiddle, and and that was it. And I just loved the music, and I just really liked the vibe, the feeling with the people who were there, and that's pretty much been it ever since. And people used to ask me why I play this music when I'm not Irish, but my only answer has ever been, well, I love the music, and most of my friends play it, so that's my main reason there. So.
And Clint, what sparked your interest in Irish traditional music? Where did that come from for you?
Yeah, it's going to be difficult for me to answer without kind of connecting it to other questions that are in the interview, but
that's okay.
It just a musician that I ended up working with some time ago had a lot of experience in with Irish music, and he opened up my ears to a lot of great artists in the field and their recordings, and that got my attention, and ended up kind of learning a lot from him by playing music with him and kind of trying to figure out what the guitar's role is in the Irish trad, and just having a lot of fun with it and finding a lot of inspiration in it. So.
Mm-hmm. So Randal basically just shared with us that he doesn't have any Irish in his ancestry. I'm curious, do you?
Well, growing up, we did not have any knowledge that my family had ancestry there, but recently, due to updates to a DNA service that I had used years ago, the original results did not show Irish, but a recent update this year surprisingly shows about 15% Western Ireland roots. So apparently I do, and I couldn't be more happy and more interested in getting to the bottom of it, and just
so you come back honestly having this talent for playing it. That's wonderful. So Randal, I'm curious, what were the main influences that shaped Irish Baroque music, particularly politically and historically?
Yeah, well, I know we talked about this a little bit the other day. And I do have some experience with Baroque music. I was pretty serious about the classical guitar at one point in my life, and had a lute, and I was telling Gus about this, but the interesting thing, like getting involved in the Irish tradition is kind of like you can talk about how the Baroque was represented musically in different countries, the French Baroque, the Italian Baroque, this and that. Well, there kind of really wasn't an Irish Baroque in that sense. So the music we play is a separate tradition, and it existed, pre-existed before the kind of European classical, so-called classical tradition kind of came along. But so it was certainly, they were influenced by each other, but because this is kind of it's a separate tradition of music from what you might think of as European. I don't really like the word classical, but so the court music or whatever. But because this is the music that belonged to this culture that had been pushed out to the margins of life, pushed out of public life, pushed out of affluence in every way, they largely missed the Industrial Revolution until the last 100 years or so, which is an interesting concept. And musically, part of what that means is they didn't really have piano keyboards in their music that much. And what that means is they weren't afflicted with equal temperaments. So they did and still do play this music closer to what I would think of as just intonation. So especially like the thirds and sevenths are found in a little bit different locations. And as a musician, that's really interesting. And you have to kind of get into it, pretty serious into it, before you really start paying attention to these shadings of pitch and this kind of thing. So, but and I don't want to sound like I'm an expert on Irish history, but I've learned a lot about it over the years. And like I say, I don't feel like, for us coming at it from outside of Ireland, I don't feel you can really understand the music and the significance of what we've been handed unless you have some sense of the struggles the Irish went through to maintain it.
Right. So I'm wondering, how does Irish Baroque music differ from traditional Northern European Baroque music? And to kind of help you a little bit more with where I'm going with this, historically, where would it have been performed and what type of audience?
Yeah, well, again, you have to bear in mind, let's take, say, like we're playing a lot of dance music, but we have a couple pieces in our program Saturday night by Turlough O'Carolan, and he was one of the last of the great bardic harpers in Ireland. He composed a great deal of music, a lot of which we still play. He wrote songs, poems in the Irish language. So, and he was of the old Gaelic Catholic culture, but to make his way in life, he played in the so-called great houses mostly. And those were almost entirely in the hands of Protestant families that would be more representative of the kind of European trend, or the more European type culture. And in those houses, as far as I know, anyway, I don't mean to sound too expert in this, but as far as I know, in those houses, often they would have music, say maybe music of Handel or different Baroque composers we're familiar with, but they also very often would have O'Carolan and people of his kind playing in there. So basically these musics existed at the same time. But my point is just that the Gaelic music had a very long legacy at that point already, and so it was there, and then there was some interaction between the two. Musically, it could get into a complicated discussion, but this music would always have been kind of community music. Music for the dance, like most of what we play in the concerts was originally music for the dance, and the dancing is still very, very strong in and out of Ireland to this music, So the rhythm is really crucial, but it's a much bigger repertoire than that. There's the slower pieces, the sad pieces. There's a singing repertoire, which Clint and I don't do. And then the harp repertoire is like another expansion on it. So, and a lot of that music, as far as I understand it, would have been more, like I say, community rather than performance hall type music. So,
Right, right.
Answer or not, but
Yeah, absolutely. So I believe you have a piece that you would like to share with our audience tonight. So I am just going to let you go ahead and take it away.
okay. Well, I do, and I was thinking about it. This thing of the history being so meaningful and important in the music. So I'll just play a couple of short pieces put together. The first is a march, and as far as I know, it's very old. It's called the Battle of Aughrim. And Aughrim is a place in East Galway in rural Western Ireland, which was the scene of this huge battle in 1691, which to a lot of people, that was kind of the end of the possibility of that older Gaelic culture thriving. It was part of what's called the Williamite Wars. And so anyway, a very, very tragic time in Ireland. It was the competition between King James, who had been deposed, who represented the Catholic population, and King William, who had been brought in. So in Ireland, the name of it is, they call it the Battle of the Two Kings. But anyway, this march is about that, the Battle of Aughrim. And then I'll follow it with a tune that was composed by a man named Paddy Kelly, who was from that area. And it's called St. Ruth's Bush. And I love the tune. I love Paddy Kelly's music, but I also, just historically, this is like I say, when I first got involved, I knew so nothing about Ireland or history. But these little tantalizing bits, like why would a tune be called St. Ruth's Bush? Okay, so over time I found out St. Ruth, the Marquis de St. Ruth, was a French commander who came over to help lead the Irish forces at the Battle of Aughrim. So, and he unfortunately was standing during the battle where a cannonball wanted to go. So his head came off. But the legend is where his head landed on the ground, this bush sprang up and it grew for a very long time. And so that's the title of it. So you have the Battle of Aughrim and St. Ruth's Bush. And just one more little point. When I was playing this first tune today, I was listening to it in my ear and I thought, well, you know, there's a great love of American country western music in Ireland, even now. And boy, you can really hear the connections between the Irish tradition and the American tradition, especially if you've ever heard really great Appalachian Southern old time fiddle playing. You'll hear in this first tune, I don't play that music much, but there's a real connection in the sound. And now I'll shut up and play the tunes. That's it.
That was just lovely. Thank you so, so much. So, Clint, my understanding is you've had quite a varied musical career, and you started out playing guitar at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia, in a show called Celtic Fire. I'd love to hear you tell me more about that and kind of how that opportunity came to be.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so I went to school to study music before that, and I studied music composition and jazz, and a lot of the my peers that were graduating were kind of going in one of two directions. A lot of them were going towards work on cruise ships or work in theme parks. Um, so someone I knew did work there before during the summer, and then a couple of us were about to graduate, and we auditioned there and ended up getting some work there, and that worked there for a few years, and they have different parts of like the country there. I'm sorry, different parts of the world. There are different countries. So one of them is Ireland, and they have Irish shows there. And they started a new show called Celtic Fire, and that's actually where I met the musician who introduced me to. A lot of us who worked there were just sort of kind of versatile musicians, kind of dabbled a little bit in this and that. But this guy that they brought in actually had a background in this music, and he was the one who opened up my ears and to the music. And um, yeah, it was just kind of the path that a lot of us went that from school to, and I ended up there. Did that answer the question?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
I would say it did. And I believe you also took the other route. You ended up also working on cruise ships. So what made you decide to do that?
Yeah, I guess I had ties, maybe a girlfriend in the mix, linking me
Aha.
to stay on land, and then after a couple years passed, that no longer was the case. So I was free to go out on the sea.
And be an adventurer out on the open.
Yes.
Okay. So what eventually brought you to settle in Seattle? And I believe you settled here just recently in 2019, correct?
Yeah, I guess still on the subject of, girlfriends and true love. My lovely girlfriend has family in the area here, so that's really what brought me to the area.
Okay, okay, I got you. So I believe you also have a piece that you would like to perform for our audience tonight. So I will just let you go ahead and tell us about it and just offer the virtual stage to you.
Okay, thank you. So I do enjoy a good minor, slow Irish air, and the piece that I'm about to play, I every recording that I had heard before was in a minor key until Randal had introduced me to the incredible playing of Willie Clancy, and I got in touch with his version of the tune, and he actually took it out of a minor key. For the music theory inclined out there, I would consider it more of like a Mixolydian type of a key. Um, so yeah, the piece I'm going to play, I'll try my Irish here on Buachlan Ban, or I think in English it's translated to Dear Irish Boy. So I'll grab my guitar and try to show you guys my hands. Is that good? Is that a good view? Okay.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. That was lovely.
That was-
I'm curious, how did you two meet and end up playing music together? It's always interesting how musicians find each other, particularly, with you being fairly new to the community, Clint. So if one of you would like to speak to that, or both of you.
Well, it's like most Irish musicians, you meet in the session, and that's where Clint and I met. There's a regular, really good session at a wonderful pub in Fremont called Sean O'Donnell's, a little pub there, but great people who own that place. And so we were there. It was a big night, and I couldn't really hear you very well that night, Clint. So I'm glad you introduced yourself.
Oh, that's
Me
wonderful.
too.
So where do you both like to play? I mean, obviously it's probably limited now with COVID-19 going on, but where, if people want to come and listen to you play, where is it that you tend to hang out when things are a little bit more accessible than they are at the moment?
That's it's a long story, but basically nowhere. It's like, what's funny, Betsy? I don't know if you realize this, but when we filmed the concert for Early Music Seattle. Well, that was the second gig we've ever done together.
Oh,
I have a new CD that came out in March, just in time for the pandemic. It's called Up the West, and we had a series of CD launches planned, but of course they're all scratched. But the very first one was March 1st, and so we did that one. It was here in Olympia. But there are regular sessions in Seattle, but since I live in Olympia, I wasn't making those very regularly. But hopefully when things get back to normal, we'll be playing regularly. And it's hard to say where just right now. A lot of the small places that hosted music, the venues, at least here in the South Sound, are actually going out of business. So
oh.
it's a little hard. Everyone's concerned to see what happens to local and regional music when things come back, but it's looking quite grim right now. So,
Well, hopefully we'll all be so starved for it. We'll be flocking to places and, being able to get everybody back on the map and support everyone at the time. And so, so we just have to kind of hang in there through this. So Clint, where have you played in Seattle since you've been here? I'm curious.
That's a good question. Private events, again at sessions. That's kind of how I'm getting to know people here, and I'm trying to think if there's been like a public place that I've played at. Nothing's coming to my mind. I think a lot of it was more private events. So we need some more public music opportunities for Irish trad.
Absolutely. I would agree. Yeah. So I think what we'll do is open up to some Q&A and see kind of who has some questions that they may want to ask you. So let's see. There's one that's coming in from Diane, and this is for Randal. If your background was classical guitar, why did you choose to play a fiddle when you first heard Irish trad? Why not stay with the guitar?
well, I have a background in a lot of things, including the classical guitar, but I had been pretty serious about that at the time. And like I said, I had bought a lute, but when I heard that, I had kind of turned away from it all. And there's musically, honestly, I loved the Baroque music and the transcriptions for Renaissance and Baroque music, but I didn't care for the bigger guitar repertoire that much, to be honest. It didn't really resonate with me. But the big thing was, I was just, on a personal level, I just wanted a bigger voice. It's such a quiet, thoughtful instrument. And I still play the Bach pieces around home, for myself and my family. But yeah, I wanted a bigger voice, something that had some power and dynamic range. And so that was it. And I was fascinated by it. What I didn't take into account at that time, 45 years ago, was the complexity of using a stick to make music. So that was a journey, all right. That took a long time, you know. But that's basically it. I really, and like I say, this music, I really just fell in love with the sound of the fiddle, kind of instant. So.
Mhm. So, folks, those of you who are out there, if you have questions, please go ahead and type them in the Q&A box for us. I do have another one coming in, and either one of you, I think, can answer this. It says, "Can you talk about the melodic versus harmonic nature of the Irish tradition and compare that to Baroque traditions?"
You want me to talk about? Well, um, Clint has taken a vow of silence early here.
Randall has more information than I do right now, but
I always like to point it's kind of a big deal in this music. And again, like I said, I was so ignorant about it when I first encountered it, but I loved it, and the love guided me as it does, you know, in life generally. But I came to understand that this tradition, this Irish tradition, is really almost entirely concerned with melody and not harmony. So, you know, we're concerned with stringing notes together in time, not with how they relate to each other vertically so much. Although that's implied. I don't mean to say that the music is without harmony, but it wasn't typically accompanied for an awfully long time. It's maybe the last 100 years or so. And so you can get, let's say, 30 melody players, fiddles, whistles, flutes, concertinas in a room and playing together, and we'll all be playing pretty much the same melody. So that's very cool. It's a great thing about it. What we call a session is not a jam session. It's really, it's a group memory building exercise in the form of a party. And it really works. It really helps us remember these tunes. But if you get two guitarists, they will almost definitely be playing different chords. Would you agree with that, Clint?
yes, unfortunately.
That there is no tradition or there is no right chord for any particular place. And
yeah, that's why like if there's one guitar player, that can be really a beautiful freeing thing. Like if you just have a lot of room, you have a lot of decisions at your fingertips at any moment of directions you can go. And I myself, that's one of the appeals to me for playing Irish accompaniment on the guitar. I really enjoy that.
Like I loved it. You mentioned when you played the on Buchalin Bond, you mentioned that you are now hearing it more of a Mixolydian piece rather than a minor or Dorian piece. That's the choice of the guitarist to kind of line that out. And you know, I love Clint's decisions on this kind of stuff. I feel really good with it. And there are other people I don't so much. But in any case, the thing is, if you get two or three people playing chords in one setting, because it's not planned out, it's going to be a conflict. And what happens is it can make the rhythm muddy, and then the rhythm has to be really crisp and precise to make these sessions work. So
the guitar players would really need to be in tune with each other very strongly.
And have planned, yeah.
Yeah. So a question that kind of comes in around sort of arranging this music between the two of you, it's coming from Nancy. How do you arrange traditional tunes for your combination of instruments?
That's easy for me. I just play the melodies, and he has a great ear. So what do you think about that, Clint?
I'm definitely, I'm newer to the tradition, and I guess even if I wasn't new to it, I'm always open to hear what has been done before on great recordings by great artists. I'm always open to checking that out and learning from that, and also, bringing my own tastes into it, my own ear, and being inspired by the melody, trying to have that be the focal point and support the melody. Do my best to get that done and make something interesting and something that I feel good about. happen.
Yeah. So there's a question coming in, and I may mispronounce this name, so I'll apologize ahead of time. Isha asks, Randal, have you tried a Baroque bow? And if so, how did you feel about it?
I have. I have a lot of friends who play Baroque music, and I have a lot of friends who are bow makers. The idea of a Baroque bow has been presented to me more than once, and it's fine at home. I do find like the modern bow, like I do like the weight of it, and there are times when, you know, like I say, I need to kind of dig in and make more sound, and I really haven't spent much time with one. If there is a bow maker, like maybe over in Port Townsend watching, and wants to send me a nice Baroque bow for a few years, I'd be happy to do that. But people have mentioned that to me before. One thing I do, which is, you know, I've watched a lot of Baroque violinists play, and you know, I don't use a chin rest. A lot of things, but I do use a shoulder rest, but I don't use the chin rest. And I really like the just the resonance of the instrument. I like the feel of it against your jaw and that kind of stuff. But I feel they resonate more the way that they're designed to resonate without all that stuff clamped on there.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's funny. A lot of fiddlers in Ireland, older fiddlers, didn't use chin rests. And also, they would often play tuned down. So let's say maybe 415 or something like that. So there's a lot of parallels with, because the violin made its way into Ireland during what we call the Baroque period, but they were playing these tunes on it. But there are quite a few connecting points between those two traditions.
Okay. So here's a question that comes in from Rick. Have you ever traveled to Ireland? And if so, do you have any plans to go there again? And either one of you can answer this.
Clint, I don't know. Have you been over there?
Yeah, that's funny because you and we did talk about this at one point, and well, according to you, I haven't, because the only place I have been was Dublin. So, but no, I would love to go back, and I would love to spend a good amount of time there, probably in the summer, and really explore and get to know some places and get to know the country and play music with musicians there. Once we're able to, and we have the time and resources to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have been there a fair amount. I've never lived over there, but I've been there a number of times and have a lot of dear friends and musicians who I know very well, admire in Ireland. So,
Randal, this is a question for you. It's from a couple of people, it looks like. One, Mike and Julie Z says, hi there. What is the first fiddle tune you learned?
I don't know if I remember. It might have been, well, one of the first was probably, I really don't remember. I can just guess, basically, but it might have been The Ships Are Sailing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And here's one that's come in from Rick that I think either one of you can answer. Are there any music festivals that you that would include this type of Irish music in the Washington area after the pandemic has passed?
Well, I'm doing so much talking here. Clint.
I'm gonna screw this one up because I'm new here. I don't know what the festivals are here yet.
He's getting to know
and I haven't got to experience them. This is like my first summer and spring here, and been happening. So I honestly don't know. I don't know yet.
You have this to look forward to. so Randal can enlighten us all here.
Well, there have been a number of. Was it about festivals? Was that the question?
Yes, I believe so. Mm-hmm.
Like that would have Irish traditional music in them.
Places.
Right.
Yeah, and my wife just stuck her head in the door to tell me to talk about what I'm about to talk about. That's marriage for you. So, so for many years, I've been the artistic director of an event called Cascadia Irish Music Week. And that has been happening here in Olympia at the Evergreen State College campus. But before that, I directed an event called Friday Harbor Irish Music Week. And what these both are, that one's no longer happening, but what these were week-long events modeled after things like this in Ireland. And they're not just performances, they're classes, group hangouts, sessions, people coming from all over North America and even other countries. We had, I think, 120 or 130 students the last time. We did Cascadia, which was 2019. This year, obviously, we had to skip it from the COVID, and next year remains in the balance. But in any case, and then we bring teachers from Ireland, and I just love it. So Cascadia Irish Music Week, hopefully that'll be back, and it's easy to find online. But to me, it's like a little week of a little temporary village, especially chock full of musicians. So it's a great, but there are some other performance type festivals around. I'm not totally up on them all, but I think there's one down at the coast, Bellingham and Portland, and a lot of places have them now.
Okay. So one question, we've heard this word come up a number of times, and so someone's asking a question, what is a session exactly?
Well, it's a group memory building exercise with a party added on. Again, like these are melodies, and it is tricky to remember them, but it's often confusing for people who are new, who might think it's the same thing as a jam session, but it's really not. We're not really in there. It's not a performance. It's kind of it's part social event where we get to be together and catch up on news, but mainly we want to play the tunes, as we call them, the repertoire of tunes, and keep your memory sharp on those. And it's fun. It has to be fun. So, but there's been a lot written about it, and it's if you haven't been inside it, it's a little hard to understand. But you know, it's just that. So I don't mean, when I say group memory building exercise, I don't mean to say that it's dull or dreary in any way. A really good one is just tons of fun.
And it happens to be in public, right? Usually.
What?
And it happens to happen in public places, right? Usually.
Private too, yeah. But yeah. I wish I had a nickel for every tune I've played in a session over the last 45 years. I'd be very wealthy.
Sounds like something that'd be really fun to participate in as an audience member, for sure.
It is, Betsy, and you know, but the frustrating thing is because what it is, it's all about knowing these melodies by heart. You don't bring written music to these sessions. So it can be very frustrating to hear it and be excited about it, and you want to do it, but you don't know any tunes. So, and I didn't mean that as an advertisement, but I teach tune learning classes for that reason. But it is, I understand that frustration, you know, that if you don't have those melodies and you play a melody instrument, you have no choice but to, you know, knuckle down and learn them as fast as you can.
Right, right. So there's another question coming in from Kay. Is there a way traditional Irish fiddling can influence Baroque music performance? How would you characterize such influence, such as with rhythm?
Wow, that's a really interesting question.
Anything's possible.
I like that answer.
Well, it depends. Like, it used to be many years ago. Somebody asked earlier why I turned away from kind of the classical guitar tradition. Well, another thing I didn't like at the time, I think it's gotten much better, was what I felt was kind of a disdain for other traditions. I don't think it's quite so much like that now. I sense this real interest and enthusiasm amongst classical players to understand what I do and what we do here. So I don't know, like if someone who was a serious Baroque player, I think they'd be looking back at performance practice from earlier times in that tradition. I don't know if it'd be appropriate to bring Irish rhythms and things into that kind of music. That's a really good question, but I don't know.
Mhm. So those are all the questions that we have, unless anyone has any more to ask. It looks like we've gone through the ones that have been submitted. Oh, wait a minute. Looks like there's another one. Jenny is asking this question to Clint. Has he been able to incorporate his music in his present profession?
Um, not really, no, I would say. I try to keep them separate. Music is something that I really, um, I don't know, that's a different side of me, I think. I try to not mix them too much, if I can avoid it.
I have
Sure.
for Clint.
Okay.
Just talk the way you're tuning on the guitar. It's not the standard guitar tuning.
Yeah, the tuning is a dad tuning. Um, so yeah, in Irish trad guitar comping, the tendency is to at least have the lower E string drop down to a D. A lot of that lends itself better to the keys that the melodists play in. They don't, yeah. So D would be a better note for that. And then the there's two other strings that would be going down a whole step, the higher strings. So the B and the E traditionally in the standard guitar tuning would also go down. So it's a very kind of a droney type of a tuning that lends itself well to having open strings ringing out. And you can have those going against fretted notes. And it lends itself to sound better, the style, I think. Um, yeah.
Great. So I'm curious, the concert that people are going to be hearing on Saturday, is there anything in particular that would be wonderful for people to pay attention to as they're watching it? Something to kind of watch out for, um, or any advice for how to watch it?
Hmm. Well, like I said, it was only the second time we'd done a performance together. But I mean, we had to be distanced, and Mark did a great job, the videographer, with recording it. Uh, it was in a big empty room. What I loved the natural reverb in there, but it's slightly different sound for our kind of music. So it's a lot of small notes in this kind of music, and but so you can hear the natural reverb of that lovely hall. And I guess anything. What do you think, Clint? Anything other than that? Or?
I don't know. I just felt like we had a good variety of forms of different types of rhythms and
Yeah.
styles. We touched on a lot of different types of Irish music rhythms in there, so you can kind of
Mhm.
enjoy each different style.
Oh, I did think of one thing. We did it. I tuned the fiddle down to Baroque tuning to A415. And again, that's like a lot of older traditional players would play tuned down like that or even further. And so we did the whole concert like that on my regular fiddle. And then I did one piece on this other fiddle uh, tuned even lower and in an open tuning. So GD, but tuned down, I think, I don't know, maybe 3 half steps or something like that. So that's kind of interesting. I mean, I guess if you're a violinist or fiddler, you might find that interesting.
Mhm. So that sparked a few more questions that have come in here. So this one's from Vanessa. Randall, how much do you vary your fiddling of a particular tune, different ornaments, bowing notes, etc.?
Constantly. And it's one of the things on the surface, it can sound like it's all the same and it goes on, blah, blah, blah. But, again, if you're inside it, you can often hear these constant variations in ornaments and bowing. Um, and, you do have choices in those places, like how you do it. And then you can also do like melodic variations, where you kind of go off and come back. So it's pretty creative in a limited sense, but I find for myself, I vary it quite a lot. And one time I played a concert up in Alaska, and this man came up to me and he said, man, you never play a tune the same way once. And I think that's like a bluegrass joke. I'm not sure, but it's true, because I would be monkeying with it all the time. Having said that, I like to, when the first time through a tune for an audience, I like to present the basic tune more or less, so that, you never know, somebody might be completely new to it. You want them to hear the beauty of that tune without all your fancy stuff first, and then you can do your variants later, but that's about how I feel about it on fiddle anyway.
Mm-hmm. So this is a question from Jenny. So Randal mentions that he teaches music lessons. She's wondering, Clint, if you give any private lessons.
I don't currently have students right now. I have in the past, but not since moving here. I guess I would be open to it potentially, taking up a few. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll make sure that we have your contact information.
Okay.
Get in touch with you if she wants to take some lessons from you. So I think that's all the questions that we have coming in. And so I would just like to say thank you so much for joining us tonight, Randal and Clint, for spending part of your evening with us. It's just been wonderful. And we really look forward to your concert on Saturday at 7 o'clock. And that is a free concert. If you feel inspired to offer some sort of a donation so that we can continue to bring you these types of virtual programmings, and you'd like to see more, we always appreciate that. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and hope you all have a lovely rest of your evening. And until next time, take good care, everyone. Good night.
Bye.